Welcome to the Bucky Brooks Show. I am Bucky Brooks, and today is a special day because anytime I get a chance to reconnect with old teammates, I love it. And today we're bringing on the host of the Overreaction Buffalo Show, John Fina, former first-round pick for the Buffalo Bills way back in the day, my teammate back in 94 and 95. John, what's going on, man? It's been a long time.
Hey, man, you look great. Let me tell you. I mean, you look almost as good as me.
I love it. And the humility has always been there. I appreciate the thing. Like, look, man, it has been a long time. You're going to have to bring me up to speed. You spent 11 years in the league, 10 years with the Buffalo Bills, went to 2 Super Bowls with the team. Like, besides hosting the show, which is great, what have you been up to?
Oh, man, life's a journey, right? There's no straight line through life. So I've done a great many things. From medical device sales. Now I sell cybersecurity for one of the biggest companies nobody's ever heard of. And so day by day, I'm trying to keep everywhere you go, every vendor you use, every bank as safe as they can with encryption. And, the learning curve was pretty steep, I have to say, but I work for a great company and we have a great enterprise product. So think of the biggest companies in the world, they use our products.
John, like it's really interesting, like at a time where you are able to represent the Buffalo Bills through podcasting, you're connected. In fact, we shared where last year during the Monday night game, you were a legend of the game when I was on the sideline for the Jacksonville Jaguars, which was interesting and ironic. And so you're really, really close to the team. And whenever I think about Buffalo, not only do I think about the great players, the city, and those things, I got to tap into your brain because you had a chance to play for Marv Levy for so many years, Hall of Fame coach, and those things. Like, what are some of the things that you learned from him? And then I want to spin it forward as we begin to talk about Sean McDermott leading this team, and if you see any parallels between the two.
Yeah, I mean, Marv was amazing. He was just dripping with great stories and advice, and always delivered it with a really great sense of humor. I think one of the things I really learned from Marv is, number one, be patient. Right? Don't rush. Don't go crazy. Take your time. Be on time. Be a good citizen. And Marv only had 2 rules, and those were them: be on time and be a good citizen. First meeting as a rookie, I show up with a notebook. I'm ready to take notes, and he says, "All right, I'm going to go over the rules." And then there's just 2 rules, and he treated his players like grown men. Guys misbehaved, but he didn't lecture them and he didn't get yelled at. They just took it out of your check. You just got a nice big fat fine and you just changed your behavior. It wasn't personal, it was business. And, Marv really helped me become a parent, right? I got 4 kids, a girl, boy, and 2 years between each. And there were times when, the old Sicilian in me wanted to lose control, and I'd kind of have to channel a little bit of my inner Marv just to take a deep breath, step back, and realize, this is a moment in time. It's not all of time compressed into this moment.
It's so funny because I feel like I was so blessed. Obviously, you had been with the team for 2 years, Super Bowl 27, 28. Didn't go the way that obviously the Buffalo Bills wanted when you lose to the Cowboys in back-to-back years. But to me, I joined right after that run, and I marveled at the grit and the resilience of that team. To fall short, you fell short twice, they fell short 4 times, but to go back to back to back to back, to me, it's just a special quality that the team had to have. What did you learn from those failures to continue to get up, bounce back, be one of those teams that's always in the conversation?
Well, one thing I learned is you don't get along with everybody you work with, but if you're smart, you figure out a way to respect everybody you work with. And, you joined in 94. It wasn't a great season, but even in the 2 Super Bowl years that I played, we had some disappointing games. And there were times when, guys would ride each other pretty hard. But at the core of it, Bucky, there was this intransigence to failure, this belief that I can get up and get better the next day. And this true belief that the tools were in place to get to that final game every year. And whether we won it or not, and we didn't, you always had the deepest amount of respect for these guys, just because, it's yeoman's work, right?
Mm-hmm.
People don't necessarily see that on TV. They see all the glory, but you're in there grinding it out every day, right? And I think those are some of the greatest times when we come off a bad game and, people point fingers at themselves and each other a little bit, but at the core of it, it was everybody pick up the rope and pull. And, I was fortunate. I mean, I tell people all the time, people that get it say it's amazing like you do, but other people who think, oh man, your career, you lost those Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm.
How many guys, Bucky, do you know that played 6 to 10 years, never got close, would lay down in traffic to go to a Super Bowl and lose?
Look, John, it's one of the more remarkable things to get close to be a man in the arena. And I always think about that quote from Teddy Roosevelt when he talked about just putting yourself out there and daring greatly, and how the Buffalo Bills have been able to do it. And now I fast forward to this era, and I'm looking at Sean McDermott trying to lead this team to the promised land. And they have been so close and haven't been able to get there. But I see a lot of the same traits from this era's version of the Buffalo Bills and the previous era that couldn't get there. What do you think about Sean McDermott and the job that he's done to continue to consistently get this team close? And at some point, they're going to knock the door down, but to always have this team up and going and battling with the heavyweights in the NFL.
Well, I had a chance to meet Sean McDermott, Bucky, and really spent about 15 minutes just chatting one-on-one. And when you're around Sean, you get that feeling that he's a real person. And you can immediately start to believe in him, his message, his methodology. And I think that is why you have such a strong culture in Buffalo right now. Having come up short a little bit, for me, I'm just thrilled that my team is over the 17-year drought and we're winning, right? Would I love to have a Super Bowl? Hell yes. But can I be proud of my team at the same time? Absolutely. And a lot of that comes from Sean. Just the way about him, a quiet confidence, very thoughtful kind of guy. You can see it in his pressers. He's not bombastic. He doesn't think much more of himself than, anybody regular Joe walking down the street. And I think that really appeals to what really is a core of your football team. Think offensive line, defensive line, guys that are just kind of either go unnoticed or always under the microscope. If you have a guy who's leading you, who delivers a message and believes in his message and has that way, a process, you can get behind that. And I like the guy. People talk, well, if he doesn't make it again this year, is he gone? And I keep saying to myself, how many wins is enough? I mean, I have pride in my franchise right now like I hadn't had for 17 years.
I do think there is a lack of respect for the consistency of being in the conversation. Having played a long time, the only thing that you want for your team is to always be knocking on the door. You can't win it every year, but you want to be in that conversation where if you can get to the divisional round and to the championship game, look, man, that's a pretty good season because you gave yourself a chance to be able to do it. And one of the reasons the Buffalo Bills have a chance is because they have Josh Allen. You obviously played with Hall of Fame quarterback Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly is one of the best leaders that I've seen, a man's man when it comes to the toughness. But man, when I look at number 17, who can kind of don the Superman cape and put the team on his back, there's a lot to like about Josh Allen. What do you love about Josh Allen when you watch him?
Well, I mean, I got a chance to be there the day after he was drafted. I've got to know his parents a little bit. And he's the type of guy who, again, $300 million guy, whatever the number is. But when you meet him, when you meet his family, you recognize that they don't feel like they're alone in the world, that they're part of something bigger, that they're part of really great people surrounding them, or, people that you don't know that you just want to get to know because, life happens around us. And the more you dig into it, the more happy returns that come to you. And Josh is that guy. And to see the way he bonds with that team, and he doesn't have that bombastic type leadership, but it's that quiet confidence, but a fun-loving attitude that he brings to everybody. And don't get me wrong, I mean, you've seen it. He's the fiercest of competitors on the field, but really just a remarkable guy. And again, going back just to that previous discussion a little bit, don't you wish you could just point at one thing and say, this is the one reason we didn't win it all, and then you can just rip that out of the organization and move on? But it's never like that, is it, Bucky? I mean, the ball is not round. It doesn't bounce properly any time at all. You get injuries. You get, guys on the other team, they get paid too. They make great plays. So, I believe in Josh. I believe in the way this roster has been constructed this offseason, filled a lot of gaps. And I think with his leadership and some of these people that we pulled from the Chargers and the Browns and here and there, I think, we got a real chance this year.
Yeah, look, you certainly have a chance. And you got a chance because it's not only about the quarterback, but that offensive line is looking like it can be one of the best in football. Deion Dawkins gets a lot of praise. But you got young guys, Osiris Torrance, you have Sean Brown. Like you have a lot, Spencer Brown, you have a lot of young talent that is really to go to the next level. Because you played the position, when you assess the offensive line, how good is this offensive line? How good can they be in 2025?
It's almost like you were reading my mind, Bucky, because, I don't know if you know Joe Marino from the Locked On podcast. He covers the Bills. And when I played in Buffalo, we used a ton of five-man protection. You were on your own. It was the Wild Wild West. It was Clint Eastwood and the bad guy, and you're drawing your gun every damn play when we were passing the ball. Now, you keep in mind that this offensive line gave up 14 sacks last year. I think the least, or in the top 5 least in the league. Add to that they have more five-man protection than any other team in the league into the 80s, 80% of the time, just 5 men protecting on pass. So across the board, from tackle to tackle, the guards and the center, this is a very impressive group. I would argue they're top 5, if not top 2 or 3. They're all very different in their style of play, which is kind of fascinating to me. The tackles, very especially. Deion Dawkins, his feet go crazy. But by the time the inflection point is there, he's square. He's got his hands up. He's a great player. I visited with him back in January, and this is just it's a strong group across the board that, the consistency of players isn't what you would think that delivers this kind of quality, because the roles and the people have changed over the past probably 6 years. So not this consistent same guys, but definitely a consistent delivery.
Yeah, you talk about the delivery, the offensive line, and it's so great that you pointed out the amount of time that they're utilizing five-man protection. And the reason why they want to do that is because they feel great about the weapons they have on the perimeter. Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, the 2 tight ends that you talk about, Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, they really have the potential to be super explosive, even though on the national scene, they don't necessarily get a lot of fanfare. So you see it. Give me the scoop and the skinny on these playmakers that the Buffalo Bills have on the perimeter.
Well, you mentioned a name that everybody in Buffalo was scratching their heads when we drafted, which was Khalil Shakir. But you and I live out here on the West Coast, man. So we see those late night games. So when Josh Allen got drafted, people went, who? And when Khalil Shakir got drafted, they said the same thing. And I'm sitting back here in Tucson going, I watch these guys at 11:45 at night. These guys are players. Khalil's got to be my favorite. In addition to, Kincaid getting stronger this offseason, and Dawson Knox he just surprises, right? You think he's a nobody, and he just makes plays at the right moment. We added Elijah Moore from Cleveland, Josh Palmer from the Chargers, with Curtis Samuel, who I think could have a breakout year. And you can five-man protect when you've got, 4 to 5 guys on the field who can consistently catch the ball. Josh, who is a weapon with his legs, when you watched him this past year with what people would argue would be a, secondary or tertiary wide receiver room, he escapes the pocket. There's always going to be pressure. But when you got a man like that, a giant at quarterback, he can escape. He's got his eyes downfield. He's a little bit more patient, looking for a man rather than scramble as he did 2 or 3 years ago. But I'll say that Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, and having our trio of running backs producing the way they are, this is an incredibly formidable offense. We can throw from any formation and we can run from any formation. And it's truly fun to watch. This is good football to watch. Wins and losses end up what they are, but I like to be able to go sit, watch my team, and believe that there's a chance.
That's always been a thing in Buffalo in terms of the belief. And a lot of times when the Buffalo Bills have been good, it's because the offense is dynamic. And the offense is certainly dynamic. We talk about the playmakers. You mentioned that three-headed backfield. We have James Cook kind of leading the way. And even though the contract thing is the contract thing, he is such a good player. When they can control the ball with the running game, it really allows them to go to the next level.
No disagreement for me. I'm an old offensive lineman, right? If it's 3rd and 1 and we're throwing the ball, I got a little bit of anger in me. Right? If it's the first drive of the game and we're dialing up a pass, you're going to hear it from me on the sideline. I want to get down into my 3-point stance and I want to grind. I want to start making those defensive linemen huff and puff and have a hard time raising their arms up by the time the third quarter starts.
In terms of thinking about the third quarter, when I think about the Buffalo Bills and I think about the way games used to be closed out, and I think about the great Bruce Smith, I think about Biscuit, Cornelius Bennett, Darryl Talley, those guys being able to close it off. When I'm looking at this lineup, I don't necessarily see Bruce, but I do see a bunch of good players that could take turns being the closer, whether it's Gregory Rousseau, Joey Bosa, who came over. You think about Ed Oliver being able to work on the inside. How good is this defensive front, man? It looks really good on paper, and we've seen them play really well of late.
Bucky, I have this argument with Jerry Ostrowski on our podcast all the time. I know, Greg Rousseau does amazing things in the run game. It's undeniable. But the things that Bruce Smith used to be able to do before the game was decided, that would change the game in our favor, we don't really have a guy who does that. Now, Joey Bosa might be that guy. I'm hopeful. But while I will say this, Bobby Babbitt Jr. as the D coordinator, I am sure is figuring out a way to get some pressure packages in there. Twists and games, linebackers coming, cornerbacks off the edge, because to have success, you've got to get to the passer in this league. Now, it's hard to do. I'm not going to lie. The ball comes out sometimes in 2.2, 2.8 seconds. It's tough to get there that quickly. So the design of the rush and the risks that we take are going to be imperative this year. Like when you think about it as the highest scoring team in the league last year, or second highest, whatever it was, if we can reduce our opponents by a field goal or a touchdown every game, we're the number 1 seed. We're odds-on winners of the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And like I said, we're this close. What's that one thing? Now, philosophically thinking, why haven't we been bringing a lot of pressure? I think when we lost Hyde and Poyer, we lost those enforcers, those 2 deeps that would come up and make guys pay. And our safeties are good, but we need guys that are going to come up and really affect that shallow passing game, the 10-yard curl, the 12-yard in, that kind of stuff. We got to have guys taking risks back there who are competent, so our front 4, our front 6 can really put pressure.
I mean, that is the biggest thing. When I wrote down in my notes, the biggest question mark, it goes to the defensive backfield. And you mentioned at one point the Buffalo Bills, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, arguably the best safety tandem during that time in terms of their playmaking ability, their toughness, the tenacity. And now they're looking to kind of find their identity in the back end, whether it's Taylor Rapp or DeMar Hamlin. They're trying to find those guys that can make plays. If this team, particularly this defense, is going to go to the next level, which part is more important, the front or the defensive backfield?
No, I think it's the front. I think I'm liking what's happening in the backfield. Cole Bishop's a year older. DeMar Hamlin had a pretty good season last year. Rapp, keep him healthy. I like Hairston, the rookie at corner. He'll get some tutoring with Trey. And then, Benford's just been amazing. So I'd like to see the front 6, front 7 really deliver, bring pressure, stop, get a couple yards off of each of those runs on the average. But what I'll say is this: what's hurt the Bills in the playoffs? Injuries on defense. And it's the health that we've got to preserve. And as you know, 17 games, man, it's a war of attrition, right? But you get to week 14 through 17 and you're standing around going, where the hell is everybody? And they're all in the damn training room. And you know what? You know how you found them? Because you're going to the training room too.
I mean, that's certainly a big part of it. So expectations. Before I get you out of here, I got to think expectations for this team. I know everyone in Western New York is going to say Super Bowl or bust, but look, you've seen it. You know how hard and how difficult it is. Like, what would be realistic expectations for this team?
Realistic expectation is 2 seed. Dream expectation is 1 seed, right? So we get that 2 seed, and depending on where we go for that championship game, whether it's Baltimore or Cincinnati or Kansas City, we've won in those places. Mm-hmm. But those games bring out the loudest to the fans, as loud as they can ever get. I put us at a 2 seed with an upset. I think the Bills make a Super Bowl appearance. I won't make a prediction on the Super Bowl, but MGM knows I did.
I love it. I love it, John. I love that MGM, the sports books already know John Fina is in the game early. Here's what I'll say about your thing. I do remember, and it's funny because Marv always kind of broke the season down and just talked about just win the division. We win the division, we get a golden ticket. That is the guarantee to be in the tournament. And anything beyond that is gravy. For the Buffalo Bills, I do believe it is that process. Let's focus on winning the division. But if the number 1 seed is there, let's make sure we take all the precautions to make sure that we get that number 1 seed. Because there's nothing better than being able to go to that stadium and before kickoff, you see the Buffaloes trudging through the snow with our favorite song playing. That is what you want to see, because it is such a huge home field advantage to be able to play in that stadium.
And there might be a little extra motivation. This is the last year in what did we used to call it?
Ralph Wilson Stadium.
Well, even before that, it was named after the food company out there in Buffalo, Rich Stadium.
Oh, Rich Stadium. That's right. That's right.
So last year in Rich Stadium, there might be a little historic reason to keep going, to make it this year. And it's like you said, win the division, and that's never easy. I actually rewatched the Jets game last night because I was breaking down some film on Keon Coleman. We only won that game 23-20. We kicked a winning field goal, and the defense had to come out and hold them back. And if you probably look at the Jets' record, you're like, well, that should be an easy win. When people say that's an easy win, I just kind of cringe. Have you ever had an easy win, Bucky?
No, man, they're so hard in the league, and that's why the outrage or the criticism that is going their way, people don't understand how hard it is to win a game, much less 10-plus games in multiple seasons. It's a very, very difficult thing to do. You know what also is difficult is knowing that you're in Tucson, and because I've been to Tucson, because I got some friends that hang out there or whatever, what's hard for me to do? It's hard for me to determine where the best Sonoran hot dog is from. And so I know in your background, Food Wars, you know what it is, and you cast the deciding vote when it comes to that. You got to tell me how you got on this Food Wars, how you were able to determine, hey, this dog is better than that dog, the Sonoran dog, and this and that. Because, John, if I had known, I was in Tucson like 6 months ago, and I was searching, trying to find the best Sonoran dog. You should have told me, man. I should have known.
6 months ago, I'd have sent you to the stand on Alvernon between Pima and Speedway. The guy's got a truck out there, and they're amazing. They're everywhere now. How I got into it, I've always been a food enthusiast. I cook probably 6 out of 7 nights a week at home. I come from a food family. We're Italian. We're always talking about recipes and things like that. I auditioned for a couple of food shows. I nearly made it onto the Food Network a number of years ago.
Okay.
And I used to do, I used to MC a bunch of local events here, and I would occasionally get asked to do something or other. And, here we go. I'm judging hot dogs of all things. I'll tell you, it's exciting. It's full circle now, because the sponsor of the Off Tackle Show with John Fina is now Salen's Hot Dogs, straight out of Buffalo, New York. 5-generation family, Salen's Off Tackle Show with John Fina. Catch it on YouTube.
Look at you, my man. Who knew that you were the culinary wizard back in the day? So not only did you do
shoot me a text, dude. I was just going through my Google photographs, and I was like, I got to delete some of this old stuff, right? And I'm looking like, let's see, I'll delete my family members. But wow, I made this amazing steak dinner. I'm going to keep that picture. What's wrong with me?
So I'm gonna make sure I check that out. You can be my culinary expert whenever I am in doubt, even when I'm contemplating what to whip up around the crib. I may like shoot my man John a text and be like, hey man, you got any recipes for me to use to see if I can take my game to the next level?
So you know what's crazy is I'm not a recipe guy. I just look at a photograph.
Oh, you're that guy. You're that guy. Okay, you're that guy. You're the guy from Chopped. You're the guy from Chopped that just, hey, I'm gonna give you an orange, 2 chicken breasts, listen to that, go make something spectacular. I get it. Okay.
Well, I don't know about spectacular, okay, but it's edible. And you're gonna survive the apocalypse by eating it, probably.
Look, man, this was great. Make sure we check out Overreaction Buffalo. John Fina, my man, former teammate. Thanks so much for coming on the Bucky Brooks Show. I have thoroughly enjoyed the conversation.
Hey, Bucky, when you come to Tucson, shoot me a message. We'll go out and we'll have hot dogs together, play a little golf, whatever it is you like to do. But thanks for having me on, man. Great show. And I've been following you a lot. I love your breakdowns. I love your pre-draft stuff. Really appreciate it. Keep up the great work, my friend.
Hey, man, it's always great to connect with a great teammate. Thanks so much for coming on. Until next time, guys, check us out on Believe. It's been a lot of fun.